Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start with India, where 110 students from Jamia Millia and Aligarh universities have been injured in protests against the controversial citizenship law. The law will give nationality to non-Muslim immigrants from 3 neighboring countries. The Indian media says demonstrations in Aligarh University began when police stormed Delhi's Jamia Millia University. Protests have spread nationwide, with students in Hyderabad, Banaras, Kolkata and Kerala taking part. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside the Delhi police headquarters, demanding the release of the detained students. In the protests, 6 people have been killed in Assam and 4 railway stations in Delhi have been set on fire. The newly elected British MPs have vowed to become voice of Indian-occupied Kashmir in and outside the UK Parliament. 15 Britons of Pakistani and Kashmiri descent were elected to the UK Parliament in Friday's general elections. In an interview, MP Afzal Khan said he will support Kashmir cause according to the UN Security Council resolutions. Another MP, Yasmin Qureshi, said India will have to give millions of Kashmiris their right to self-determination. MP Imran Hussain said they will use their offices to remind the world of its duty to settle the Kashmir dispute as per people's aspirations. Meanwhile, New Delhi's curfew and communications blackout in the valley have entered its 134th day. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has threatened to close 2 strategic military bases used by the US in Turkey. In an interview, Erdogan said he will close Incirlik and Korisik bases if Washington sanctions Ankara for buying a Russian missile system. Earlier, Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said Ankara will not cancel its S-400 deal with Moscow. Now, moving on, the US says it will not accept North Korea's year-end deadline to make concessions in stalled nuclear talks. Speaking to reporters, US Special Envoy for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, urged Pyongyang to return to the negotiating table immediately. Speaking directly to his counterparts in Pyongyang, Biegun said it is time to finalize the nuclear talks. He said it would be unhelpful if Pyongyang carries out a major military provocation in the near future.
We are fully aware of the strong potential for North Korea to conduct a major provocation in the days ahead. To say the least, such an action will be most unhelpful in achieving a lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Biegun's comments come days after North Korea conducted missile tests at a satellite launch site. He also met South Korean President Moon Jae-in in Seoul to discuss regional issues. Now, moving on to Lebanon, where riot police and anti-government demonstrators have clashed for the second night in the Lebanese capital Beirut, leaving dozens of people wounded. They were protesting against the possible nomination of Saad Hariri as Prime Minister. Police used tear gas and rubber-coated bullets to disperse the rallies outside the parliament. Protesters came out in defiance of the violent crackdown on demonstrators by security forces that left dozens wounded. Meanwhile, Interior Minister Raya Al-Hassan has ordered an inquiry into Saturday's fierce clampdown. The incident was one of the most violent since nationwide anti-government demonstrations began 2 months ago. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif has said talks between Saudi Arabia and Qatar are a good development for the Gulf region. Speaking at the Doha Forum in Qatar, Zarif said some regional actors have damaged the Gulf by establishing their own power. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt cut diplomatic and trade links with Qatar in June 2017, accusing it of backing terrorism. Doha denies the charges and accuses its neighbors of limiting the country's sovereignty. In Niger, leaders of the G5 Sahel nations have paid tribute to 71 Nigerian soldiers killed in an attack last week. The leaders held a short prayer service in Niamey besides the graves of the slain soldiers. Burkina Faso President Roch Marc Kabore called for closer cooperation between the 5 member nations.
It is more than necessary that we work quickly towards a fully capable joint force. It remains understood that the support of all the states in the region, as well as of those in the international community, is crucial to the outcome of our fight.
The G5 Sahel group is made up of Mali, Chad, Niger, Burkina Faso and Mauritania. Now moving on to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the Allied Democratic Forces militants have killed 22 civilians in the eastern town of Beni. Officials say the victims were farmers and included 13 women. Congolese officials said teams have been mobilized to recover the bodies and return them for dignified funerals. The assault came a day after 6 civilians were killed in an attack in the regional capital Beni. More than 100 people have died in attacks blamed on the group since November the 5th. Congolese forces launched operations against militants in the region in late October. The ADF has been present in Congo since 1995 and is accused of killing thousands of civilians over the last 5 years. 4 people have died after a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck the island of Mindanao in the southern Philippines. Local officials said 14 were injured in the disaster. PhilVolc's director Renato Solidum said the quake was tectonic in origin and has so far triggered 90 aftershocks. The local mayor said rescue operations were temporarily stopped due to the aftershocks. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said there was no tsunami threat from the quake. Several market vendors were also pinned under a collapsed wall in Padada town. Roads and buildings are damaged, while power transmission systems have also been affected. Pakistan is observing 5th anniversary of the callous terrorist attack on the Army Public School in Peshawar. On this day in 2014, over 150 people, including 132 children and staff members, lost their lives in a blatant act of terrorism. In a tweet, President Dr. Arif Alvi said the nation cannot forget massacre of little angels of APS 5 years ago on this day. The president said Pakistan reiterates its pledge to root out terrorism and extremism in all its manifestations. In a message, Prime Minister Imran Khan expressed a nation's resolve towards national, regional and world peace. Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa said the APS carnage will never be forgotten. He said 5 of involved terrorists hang through military courts. A number of activities and functions will be held across the country to remember the sacrifices of the innocent children. More stories to follow right after a short break. Welcome back. 55 runners from 17 countries have taken part in the Antarctic Ice Marathon. The contest was won by the American William Hafferty. But the race also included an 84-year-old Canadian who is now the oldest person in the world to run a marathon in Antarctica. This report has the details.
Athletes competing in the Antarctic Ice Marathon had to run 2 laps around the Union Glacier Exploration Camp. The site is under 1,000 kilometers from the South Pole. American runner William Hafferty clocked a new record time, coming in at an impressive 3 hours 34 minutes and 12 seconds.
Holy moly, that was hard.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed every step. Every step was worth a half a step because you slipped. It was like you take a step and slip back.
But was the most senior of the runners Canada's Roy Jurgen Svensson, who proved most impressive. The 84-year-old braved the slippery snow and cold winds, becoming the oldest person in the world to finish a marathon in the Antarctic. The first woman across the finish line was Lenka Fryoka from the Czech Republic with a time of 4 hours 40 minutes and 38 seconds.
Oh, a little bit tired, but there is also gorgeous. The sun is nice and the nature here is beautiful. I really recommend it.
The Antarctic Ice Marathon offers a rare opportunity to runners looking to compete on all 7 continents. It has been an annual event since 2006.
Lows and the highs of the business world now. South Korea and Japan have begun talks in Tokyo to find a breakthrough in settling the months-long trade row. The meeting is the first since Japan tightened export controls on some high-tech materials sold to Seoul. South Korea's Director General for International Trade, Lee Ho-hyun, and Japan's Director General for Trade Control, Yoichi Ieda, led the discussions. South Korean state media said both the sides discussed issues related to each other's export control systems. It said Seoul wants to induce Tokyo to fully lift export controls and other regulations against South Korea. Indonesia has filed a lawsuit against the EU and the World Trade Organization, saying the bloc's restrictions on palm oil-based biofuel are unfair. In a statement, Indonesia's trade minister said the decision was made after assessing scientific studies. He said the country hopes the European Union can change the directive after the lawsuit. The minister said EU policy would not just affect Indonesia's European exports, but would also tarnish the image of palm oil products. Earlier, the EU said palm oil cultivation results in excessive deforestation and its use in transport fuel must be phased out by 2030. Stock markets in Asia are trading mixed following announcement from the US and China to sing off on a Phase 1 trade deal. Investors are monitoring developments ahead of the details of the agreement. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was down by over 0.3%. The Shanghai Composite rose 0.29% as the Shenzhen Component and Shenzhen Composite each jumped over 1%. Japan's Nikkei 225 edged down after a strong rally on Friday, while South Korea's Kospi was flat. Meanwhile, oil prices declined in the morning trade. Brent oil fell $65 per barrel. Time to take a look at the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.